Imagine a place where owning just 15% of all real estate makes you royalty, where a penthouse listed for 388 million euros comes with a private water slide, and where one family literally owns the ground beneath the most expensive apartments on Earth. Monaco, the world's most expensive zip code, is controlled by 8 families whose combined influence shapes everything from Formula One to the global art market. Let's count them out, and trust me, each of these stories is crazier than the last. Number 8. The Safra Dynasty. Banking. Legacy ended in mysterious fire. Let's start with the Safra family because their Monaco story ends with one of the most controversial deaths in the principality's history, and it perfectly captures the paranoia that comes with managing billions. Edmond J. Safra was one of the world's most respected private bankers, founder of Republic National Bank and Trade Development Bank, specializing in managing massive fortunes for global elites and royalty. His presence in Monaco during the late 20th century helped solidify the principality's reputation for absolute security and discretion, attracting other billionaires to settle here. Safra's Monaco residence was a Belle Epoque penthouse in Monte Carlo, featuring armored panic rooms and steel shutters, basically a fortress designed for someone who understood exactly how dangerous extreme wealth could be. The security wasn't paranoia. It was necessity for someone managing the kind of money that attracts serious attention. Here's where the story gets genuinely disturbing. In 1999, Edmond died in a fire inside that heavily fortified penthouse. The fire was started by his nurse, Ted Mayer, in what investigators determined was a bungled attempt to save Safra and earn his favor. Mayer apparently set the fire thinking he could rescue Safra and become a hero. But conspiracy theories have persisted for decades. Some point to Russian mafia connections, others to international banking rivals who supposedly wanted Safra eliminated. The fact that one of the world's wealthiest and most security-conscious men died trapped in his own panic room has never quite made sense to people who understand how professional security actually works. Despite the tragedy, the Safra family continues exerting economic influence through J. Safra Saracen, which manages over 180 years of accumulated wealth management expertise and remains a leader in sustainable private banking. Their legacy represents old money, influence underpinning Monaco's financial sector stability. The family's commitment to Sephardic Jewish philanthropy and medical research continues quietly in the background, maintaining influence through institutions rather than headlines. The Safra Foundation supports causes globally while the family maintains the low profile that extreme wealth demands. What makes the Safra story significant for understanding Monaco is what it reveals about the principality's core appeal. Even tragic endings don't diminish the structural advantages of Monaco's tax neutrality and privacy protections that keep attracting the world's wealthiest families generation after generation. And now, here's what happens when your family literally builds Monaco's vertical skyline and survives Italian mafia kidnappings. Number 7. The Marzocco family. Building Monaco's future. The Marzocco family owns Monaco's vertical future, and their story involves actual mafia kidnappings that forced them to relocate here for safety. Founded in the 1960s by Domenico Marzocco, Group Marzocco moved operations to Monaco in the 1980s after Claudio Marzocco was kidnapped by Italian organized crime, a traumatic event that made Monaco's security infrastructure essential rather than just convenient. Since relocating, the family has completed over 50 major building projects specializing in ultra-prime luxury, targeting the world's wealthiest individuals. The Marzoccos developed Tour Odéon, Monaco's tallest building standing 170 meters as a double skyscraper. The building's Sky Penthouse became a global sensation when it listed for 388 million euros, featuring a private water slide, connecting floors, and an infinity pool overlooking the Mediterranean. Think about that price for a second. 388 million euros for an apartment, making it one of the most expensive residences ever listed anywhere on the planet. But their projects extend beyond just luxury residences. They're building critical state infrastructure, including the new Princess Grace Hospital and Testimonio, 2 complex housing the International School of Monaco, plus 348 state-subsidized apartments. The Mariterra Eco District project integrates sustainable luxury with environmental initiatives. Here's what separates the Marzoccos from other developers. They've positioned themselves as primary implementers of Prince Albert II's vision for a high-tech, environmentally sustainable Monaco. Unlike some developers who fight the ruling family over permissions and rights, Claudio Marzocco collaborates closely with the Grimaldis. Their philosophy treats each building as artwork, utilizing pink Portuguese marble and innovative energy solutions like solar-powered water systems, earning international eco-certifications. When you're building in a country with literally zero available land, every project requires extraordinary engineering and political relationships. The Marzocco family represents the builder class of Monaco's elite, families whose wealth comes from physically constructing the principality's future rather than just buying existing assets. Their survival of mafia kidnappings and subsequent integration into Monaco's power structure shows how the principality functions as a safe haven for families facing genuine security threats elsewhere. Building Monaco's tallest towers and €388 million penthouses while collaborating with royalty. That's vertical vision. Now meet the family that owns 15 to 20% of all residential real estate in Monaco and built the modern principality from swamps. Number 6. The Pasteur dynasty, Monaco's second royal family. Often called Monaco's second dynasty after the ruling Grimaldis, the Pasteur family didn't just invest in Monaco. They literally built the modern principality from nothing, and their wealth accumulation story is genuinely remarkable. The legacy started with Jean-Baptiste Pasteur, an Italian stonecutter in the early 20th century. But the real economic explosion happened under Gildo Pasteur after World War II. Here's the brilliant move. Gildo purchased the majority of the Larvado district when it was essentially a swamp, received permission to build high-rise luxury apartments, and then held onto ownership rather than selling. The Pasteur family owns an estimated 15 to 20% of Monaco's total residential real estate. Unlike typical developers who build and flip, the Pasteurs follow perpetual ownership models, managing extensive portfolios of mansion blocks along Avenue Princess Grace, where apartments rarely sell and instead rent for tens of thousands of euros monthly. Think about what owning 15 to 20% of Monaco's residential real estate actually means. In a country of 2 square kilometers where every square meter is insanely valuable, controlling that percentage makes you effectively a parallel power to the sovereign itself. Key Pasteur assets include La Roccabella, 27-story luxury residence, Gildo Pasteur Center, major commercial hub in Fontvieille, Le Formentor, modernist tower, serving as Group Pasteur headquarters, and Emily Palace, seafront luxury apartments. They also operate Pasteur Immobilier, a full-service real estate brokerage that controls sales across Monaco. But here's where the Pasteur story gets genuinely dark. In 2014, Hélène Pasteur, the richest woman in Monaco at the time, was assassinated in an ambush shooting in Nice. The investigation revealed a murder plot involving her son-in-law, Wojciech Janowski, who was eventually sentenced to life imprisonment. The case exposed family tensions over inheritance and control of the massive Pasteur fortune. Today, the legacy is managed by the next generation, including Patrice Pasteur, who's gained notoriety for fierce legal battles with the Monaco government over construction projects. His adversarial relationship with Prince Albert's administration, particularly regarding the Fisherman's Esplanade development and the Dossier du Rocher scandal, alleging favoritism in government contracts, represents the most significant internal power struggle in modern Monaco. The Pasteur dynasty proves that in Monaco, real power comes from owning the ground itself rather than just having liquid wealth. When you control where people actually live in the world's most expensive real estate market, you're essentially untouchable regardless of political controversies. Owning 20% of Monaco's real estate, building from swamps, surviving assassination plots, structural power. But what about the art dealers who stockpile 5,000 masterpieces in Geneva warehouses and own 300 Picassos? Number 5. The Nahmad family, controlling the global art market. The Nahmad family controls a completely different kind of real estate, the high-end art market, and their business model is genuinely fascinating for how it creates wealth through cultural assets. David Nahmad and his late brother Ezra built a $4 billion fortune from Monaco, operating what's essentially a major brokerage firm for the art stock market, specializing in impressionist and modern masterpieces. Here's their strategy. Maintain a stockpile of 4,500 to 5,000 artworks in a high-security warehouse at Geneva Freeport, which functions as a private museum the public never sees. Their collection includes over 300 works by Pablo Picasso alone, valued at minimum $1 billion. Total collection value sits around $7 billion, with an additional $400 million in liquid currency and stock holdings providing trading flexibility. The Nahmads influence market prices for world-renowned artists like Monet, Matisse, and Rothko by strategically buying and selling at auction, essentially controlling supply for blue-chip artworks. When you own that much inventory by specific artists, you can significantly impact what collectors pay because you control availability. Here's what makes David Nahmad personally interesting beyond the art empire. He's the 1996 backgammon world champion, which perfectly reflects his high-stakes strategic mindset in business. Backgammon at championship level is about probability calculation and risk management, exactly the skills needed for timing art market purchases and sales. But the family hasn't avoided controversy. In 2013, the FBI raided Heli Nahmad Gallery in New York in connection with a gambling and money laundering investigation involving Russian organized crime. The raid exposed connections between high-end art dealing and underground gambling operations that prosecutors alleged were laundering millions. Despite these challenges, the Nahmads remain Monaco cornerstones, providing cultural prestige through institutional partnerships with the Louvre and Metropolitan Museum of Art. Their presence demonstrates how Monaco attracts families whose wealth is held in alternative assets, like art, rather than just traditional financial instruments. The Nahmad dynasty represents the cultural wealth model. Control inventory of irreplaceable masterpieces, influence auction prices through strategic buying and selling, maintain absolute privacy through Monaco residency, and leverage cultural prestige for institutional access globally. Next up, we meet the chocolate dynasty so secretive they make the CIA look transparent. Number 4. The Ferrero family, secretive confectionery titans. The Ferrero family, led by Giovanni Ferrero, represents the most massive private fortune currently residing in Monaco, and their level of secrecy is genuinely extraordinary for a company whose brands everyone knows. The Ferrero Group owns Nutella, Kinder, Tic Tac, Ferrero Rocher, and recently acquired major U.S. brands through purchases of Kellogg's cookie business and Wells Enterprises ice cream, Blue Bunny. The company generated over 19 billion euros in revenue in 2025, operates in 170 countries, and consumes 25% of the world's entire hazelnut production. Here's what makes Ferrero remarkable. Despite being the world's second-largest chocolate producer, the company remains completely private and has been described as one of the most secretive firms globally. There are no public shareholders, no quarterly earnings calls, no investor presentations, just a family-controlled empire that reveals basically nothing about internal operations. The Ferrero connection to Monaco is characterized by extreme discretion specifically to escape kidnapping risks that have historically plagued wealthy Italian industrialists. By residing in Monaco rather than Italy, the family benefits from the principality's extraordinary security infrastructure and privacy protections that make targeting them significantly more difficult. Their influence on Monaco's economy is less about physical real estate development and more about the presence of enormous liquid wealth supporting luxury retail and fine dining sectors in Monte Carlo. When a family controls 19 billion euros in annual revenue, their spending and investment decisions ripple through the local economy. The family story started from a small pastry shop in Alba, Italy after World War II, growing through multi-generational expertise and obsessive focus on product quality. The Ferrero Foundation promotes art, science, and history while providing health assistance to former employees, demonstrating how generational wealth creates philanthropic infrastructure. What separates Ferrero from other Monaco residents is that most people recognize their brands instantly, but couldn't name the family controlling the empire. That combination of mass-market consumer presence and absolute personal privacy represents Monaco residency at its most effective. Global commercial power with zero personal exposure. And now, let's take a look at a British billionaire who moved here to save $4 billion in taxes and then bought Manchester United. Number 3. Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Petrochemical alchemist saving billions. Sir Jim Ratcliffe represents the most significant recent injection of industrial wealth into Monaco, and his relocation here saved him approximately $4 billion in taxes. Yeah, billion with a B. Ratcliffe founded and chairs INEOS, a petrochemical giant generating $65 billion in annual revenue, and his personal net worth sits around $16.3 billion. He officially moved his tax domicile to Monaco in 2020, a strategic decision that immediately saved billions by avoiding UK tax obligations. Here's where Ratcliffe's Monaco presence gets genuinely interesting beyond just tax avoidance. He owns a 1/3 stake in the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, directly tying him to Monaco's most iconic annual event, the Monaco Grand Prix. He also owns OGC Nice Football Club, located just 20 miles away, and recently invested $1.6 billion acquiring 27.7% of Manchester United. His asset portfolio is genuinely impressive. A 60% stake in INEOS generating $65 billion annually, the Hampshire 2 superyacht, 78 meters with helipad valued at $100 million, plus a cliffside Monaco villa with Mediterranean views estimated at $20 to $30 million. The spicy element of Ratcliffe's Monaco move is the timing and optics. He was a vocal Brexit supporter, arguing Britain should leave the European Union, then immediately relocated to a European tax haven once Brexit passed. British media absolutely destroyed him for the hypocrisy, championing British independence while personally fleeing to avoid British taxes. But here's what makes Ratcliffe genuinely formidable beyond the tax strategy. His reputation as an alchemist comes from buying underperforming chemical assets and transforming them into highly profitable operations through operational excellence and strategic restructuring. He's built INEOS by acquiring assets other companies couldn't optimize, then extracting value through superior management. His presence in Monaco isn't just about tax. It's about operating from a nerve center where he can manage his global empire while mooring his superyacht in Port Hercules and attending the Grand Prix with business partners and competitors who also reside in Monaco. Ratcliffe represents the industrial titan model of Monaco wealth. Build a massive company generating tens of billions annually, relocate to avoid billions in taxes, invest heavily in high-profile sports franchises for brand building and networking, and maintain operational headquarters elsewhere while using Monaco as personal base and wealth preservation vehicle. But if you think owning parts of F1 and Manchester United is impressive enough, just wait till you see the next dynasty, who runs a $19.5 billion global conglomerate from Monaco's private banking sector. Number 2. The Hinduja family. $19.5 billion, global industrial powerhouse. At number 2 sits the Hinduja family, represented in Monaco by Shanu SP Hinduja, because their $19.5 billion fortune and global industrial reach make them one of the principality's most powerful economic forces. The Hinduja Group is a transnational conglomerate with interests spanning banking, healthcare, energy, automotive, and media. Shanu Hinduja serves as chairperson of Hinduja Bank in Switzerland, while holding senior positions in the global group, positioning the family as major players in Monaco's private banking sector. The Hinduja presence in Monaco is characterized by strategic placement of financial operations within a tax-neutral environment, facilitating global wealth preservation. Their influence operates primarily through private banking catering to ultra-rich residents of Monaco's most expensive districts like Carré d'Or and Larvado. Here's what makes the Hinduja family's Monaco connection particularly valuable. Their global reach, anchored by the Hinduja Group's massively diversified portfolio, ensures their Monaco footprint operates with profound stability. They're not dependent on any single industry or geography. They've built wealth across multiple continents and sectors simultaneously. The family ranks in the top 100 wealthiest globally, according to Forbes, and their commitment to philanthropy demonstrates how generational wealth creates institutional influence beyond just business operations. Before shifting significant focus to the Mediterranean, they were among the most powerful families in both the United Kingdom and India. The Hinduja strategy in Monaco leverages the principality's high degree of fiscal security and physical security infrastructure. When you're managing a $19.5 billion fortune with global political and business exposure, Monaco provides the combination of privacy, security, and tax advantages that simply doesn't exist elsewhere. Their business operations are global, but Monaco residency allows them to benefit from zero income tax while maintaining access to European markets and infrastructure. The strategic value of Monaco for families operating at this scale is exactly this combination of tax efficiency and operational flexibility. The Hinduja family represents the global conglomerate model of Monaco wealth. Build industrial empires spanning continents and sectors, use Monaco as financial and personal base for tax optimization and security, maintain operational headquarters elsewhere while leveraging Monaco's banking infrastructure for wealth management, and integrate into the principality's elite social fabric through banking relationships rather than flashy consumption. In short, $19.5 billion across banking, energy, and healthcare. That's global industrial might at its best. But our number one? It's a family that's ruled Monaco for 727 years and literally owns 1/4 of the country. Number 1. The Grimaldi family, the sovereign owners of Monaco itself. At number 1 sits the House of Grimaldi because while other families control sectors and industries, the Grimaldis own the entire state itself. And that's a completely different level of power. The Grimaldis have ruled Monaco since 1297. That's 727 years of continuous sovereignty, making them one of Europe's oldest ruling families. Prince Albert II has a personal net worth around $1 billion, but that dramatically understates the family's actual economic control. Here's what the Grimaldis actually own and control. Approximately 1/4 of all land in Monaco, controlling interest in Société des Bains de Mer de Monaco, SBM, which operates major casinos, hotels, and luxury retail spaces, plus constitutional authority over all state development projects and land reclamation. The family's economic strategy transformed Monaco from a bankrupt city-state into a global wealth beacon by founding Monte Carlo Casino and abolishing income tax in the 19th century. Those decisions created the structural advantages that attract all the other families on this list. Prince Albert oversees land reclamation projects like the Marittera district that literally create new sovereign territory from the Mediterranean Sea, valued at approximately $2.4 billion. When you can create new land through engineering and declare it part of your sovereign territory, you're operating at a level of power most billionaires can't comprehend. The Grimaldi control is both institutional and physical. As sovereign ruler, Prince Albert has final authority over development permissions, casino licenses, residency approvals, and essentially every major economic decision affecting Monaco. That's not just wealth, that's absolute economic sovereignty within the principality's borders. The spicy element is the constant tension between the Grimaldis' Hollywood royalty heritage, epitomized by Princess Grace, and cutthroat realities of Monaco's real estate market. The recent Dossier du Rocher scandal accused the prince's inner circle of favoring certain developers over others, highlighting challenges of maintaining sovereign neutrality when every square meter represents a fortune. But here's what makes the Grimaldi position truly unassailable. They don't just participate in Monaco's economy, they define its fundamental rules. Every other family on this list operates within a framework the Grimaldis created and maintain. The casinos, the tax policies, the residency requirements, the development permissions, all ultimately flow from Grimaldi sovereignty. The family ensures that Monaco's 98000 zip code remains the world's most exclusive playground for the ultra-rich by maintaining the precise balance of tax advantages, security, luxury infrastructure, and controlled growth that keeps attracting global wealth generation after generation. The Grimaldi dynasty represents the ultimate Monaco wealth model. Sovereign control over territorial definition and economic rules, ownership of critical infrastructure through SBM, constitutional authority over all development, and multi-generational vision maintaining Monaco's unique position as a tax-neutral microstate embedded in the heart of Europe. And that's a wrap on 8 families controlling everything from global chocolate empires to the sovereign territory itself, with combined influence shaping the world's most expensive zip code. Which one impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments, and for more such interesting peeks into the global riches, take a look at global status. Catch you in the next one.